While laning, you will often engage in small battles with your lane opponent in which you exchange blows with your auto attacks and abilities. These exchanges are called trades. There are many factors to consider that affect when it is a good time to trade with your opponent. The number of minions in your lane, your positioning, and cooldowns. Pay attention to the minions in the lane. The laner that has more nearby allied minions will have an advantage in trades because of the extra damage that minions provide. Good positioning creates the opportunity to initiate trades in your favor. Always look for ways to position yourself that maximize your ability to influence your opponent while minimizing their ability to influence you. Also, keeping track of cooldowns can give you an advantage in a trade. Whenever a champion uses an ability, they become vulnerable to enemy attack as long as that ability is on cooldown. Understanding minion assistance, positioning, and cooldowns will allow you to abuse and bully your opponent around the lane. This is trade. One of the most common times to initiate a trade is when your lane opponent goes for a last hit. In this example, Katarina attempts to last hit one of the minions. Malzahar decides to attack her as she goes for the last hit. This gives Malzahar a slight advantage in the trade, since he is able to get an attack off first. Another thing to consider in this example is the auto attack animation. If you strike just as the enemy auto attack animation begins, you force the enemy to make a choice. They will either have to secure the last hit while taking damage from you, or instead attack you while missing the last hit. Whichever choice they make, you will receive some benefit. So always keep in mind when your opponent goes for a last hit and when the right opportunity to initiate a trade will be. Another thing to consider during a trade is minion aggro. When you land an auto attack on your opponent, the enemy minions will begin to attack you and will continue to do so until you leave their range. In this example, Swain auto attacks Brand within minion range. Brand's minions begin focusing Swain and they start attacking him until he leaves their range. Try to go for trades when you have more minions available than your opponent. If you are being attacked by minions, be sure to walk out of their range, as minion damage can often tip a trade in either player's favor. Consider your zone of influence during a trade. In this example, Xerath has a much larger zone than Fizz. Since Xerath's zone is so much larger, Fizz is unable to return any damage to Xerath. When you have a larger zone than your opponent, you can freely harass and leave them little opportunity to retaliate in a trade. Another important thing to be aware of are your enemy's cooldowns. If your enemy uses one of their main abilities, you have the opportunity to go for a trade that is heavily in your favor. Attacking while their spells are on cooldown give you a significant advantage in a trade, but also be wary when using your abilities on minions because you could open yourself up to enemy attack as well. In this example, Corki uses his Q ability on the minion wave. With Corki's Q on cooldown, Varus has a prime opportunity to engage in a trade. Corki is unable to respond with his Q and is forced to flee.